All right, I get a lot of questions about this motorcycle and how it handles on a course like this, so we're going to find out. It doesn't fit me very well. I would have the handlebar pulled back a bit to make it easy to reach them, because I'm having to lean forward quite a bit to reach the bars. So that would be an adjustment or a change that I would make on this bike. But of course the techniques are the same. Head and eyes, friction zone, little pressure on the rear brake. Nothing changes there. Doesn't matter, as long as your bike has two wheels, one in the front and one in the back, the techniques work. I'd say it's got about a 32-degree lean angle, pretty much the same as the Harleys. It's got a longer wheelbase, so it's not quite as maneuverable. Let's go to the offset cone wheel, see how it does. This is a series of quick left turns and right turns.
In this shot, I'm using this voiceover because we're using a PA system in this class because the class was so big, and you tend to hear a lot of echo, and its sound will go in and out. So I'm just trying my offset cone weave here. That's quick left to right transitions. The Challenger did fine through here. I'm using probably 90% of the lean angle. And the bike felt pretty good, but the handlebars are a little too far away for me. I would either have to change the handlebars, put handlebar risers, or a seat that would push me forward a bit, because my arms are fully extended when I'm making these turns, and these aren't really severe turns. In a few seconds, you're going to see me going through the Snowman, and they are some fairly severe turns. In fact, I'll mention in there that there's a 3 circles, 30 foot to the left, 26 foot to the right, and 24 foot to the left. And I actually had to go full lock to make it through the 26 and 24 foot. And that's probably due to the longer wheelbase and the fact that the handlebars just don't turn too far from lock to lock. No problem here with the 30 foot. Now I go into the 26 foot, and I'm noticing I'm at full lock. Next, I want to see how tight I can make this bike turn, so I bring it to a stop without putting my feet down, and I try to turn it within those 2 parking spaces. And it almost makes it probably about 18 foot 6 inches, and that's at full lock and full lean. So if you're looking for the maneuverability of Harley Davidson, which is the most maneuverable of the heavyweight cruisers, you're not going to get it on this bike. Maybe that doesn't mean anything to you, but for my needs, the Harley works a lot better. I gave it a shot again to make sure I was using all the space available, and I might have been able to use a little bit more space, but right here I'm at full lock. And again here to make this circle 24 foot, I'm locking it out all the way. I might have had an extra foot or so, and maybe not had to go full lock the entire time.
30 feet, 26 feet to the right, 24 feet. I noticed that I was at complete full lock in the 26 and 24 foot. So if you're going to make a circle like that on a bike like this, you're going to have to get used to riding at full lock. The handlebars don't turn near as far as the Harleys from side to side, and that makes maneuverability more difficult if you're going to go into any kind of competition. This ain't the bike for it. They have to set the course up specifically for this bike. Until next time.
Now here's the beginning of the class, and in this exercise I get a good feeling for what the class is going to be like. Now we had 10 riders in this class, and as sometimes happens, half the riders were very good or had practiced prior to getting here, and half the riders were, should I say, well, lacking in skills. That would be putting it mildly. Half the riders here had some of them been riding together. They go on different rides, 150 mile, 200 mile rides together. And what those rides consist of is cruising down the road, making great big wide 3-acre turns every once in a while. You've heard me say this before, and coming to a nice easy stop. What they don't consist of is leaning, turning, and swerving. In other words, they rarely come up to a situation where they have to actually use skill on their motorcycle, and they never practiced. Now, for instance, this rider right here, you see, she's trying to keep that motorcycle as straight up as possible. She's looking at the thing she doesn't want to hit, which is the opposite side of the U-turn, and of course, she can't make it. Now, this rider's on a VTX 1800, which has I believe it's a 67-inch wheelbase and a 32-degree rake. I used to have one of these bikes, so I'm familiar with them. They're not an easy bike to ride. I wouldn't consider them a maneuverable bike. They weigh over 800 pounds, but this rider's practiced prior to getting here and did very well. The only thing he needs to do is get a little bit more aggressive. In other words, pick up his speed a little bit. Here's our rider on the Gold Wing. He's been to the class before, he's practiced before, and he does an excellent job whipping that bike around like a toy. In fact, I even suggested to him to maybe slow down his turns there, his U-turns just a little bit would make the turns a little bit tighter. Rider on the Challenger. Yeah, not having much experience on the bike and not being familiar at all with the 3 techniques: head and eyes, friction zone, a little bit of rear brake. Yeah, he's having some problems, mainly going way too slow. It's very difficult to control the bike and make turns at 2 or 3 miles per hour. It's so much easier at 8 or 10 miles an hour, but the brain tells you the opposite. His brain keeps telling him to slow down, slow down. Well, when you slow down, you eventually got to put a foot down or the bike's going to tip over. You're not going to be able to make these turns. This rider with a high fear level and looking where she shouldn't be, in other words, to the opposite side, there's no way she's going to make these turns. The good news is she did improve greatly, believe it or not, over the 4 hours of the course. This rider you see here is a new rider, and he's on a street glide. Initially had some serious problems, was actually stomping on the brake, and I could see the bike bouncing back and forth. But here, about 3 hours into the course, he's doing very well. His main problem now is looking at the thing he doesn't want to hit. Whenever he did that, he would hit the cone. Here's our rider on the DCT Gold Wing. Considering that this is a very touchy bike to ride, you got to find that perfect spot between throttle and brake. If you don't do that, yeah, you're going to have to put a foot down. And to get that through this course as well as he did, I applaud the guy. He did an excellent job. And as I said, he is a fairly new rider. Went from a Honda 750 to that big DCT, and probably one of the most difficult big bikes to ride. Now, for you guys who have a DCT Gold Wing, and you might be arguing with me, I'll put it this way: if it would take me about probably 3 to 4 hours of intense practice on a DCT wing to get anywhere near as close as my skills are on a bike with a clutch and throttle. There's a guy on in YouTube, if you type in DCT low speed maneuvers, who's done exactly that, put in a lot of practice and got very good. He's making 18-foot turns and circles, etc. And that's not easy on that bike, but he did put in the practice hours, and he was very good at the techniques on a regular Gold Wing with a clutch. So take that into consideration. I'm not saying anything bad about your bike if that's what you like. For me, I wouldn't get one simply because I like working the clutch and throttle and being in perfect control of the motorcycle.